Good afternoon now, and thank you for your patience as we get you the most up-to-date information we possibly can. The Premier has an opening statement this morning, and then Bernie Schmidt, who is an official and a forest manager with Alberta Agriculture and Forestry, will make a statement, and then they'll both take questions from those in the room and those on the phone.
Thank you very much. I'm joined here today, as Cheryl has indicated, by Bernie Schmidt and also Minister Shannon Phillips, Minister of Environment, and Minister Shay Anderson, Minister of Municipal Affairs in charge of emergency management. Our thoughts are with the people affected by the fires in the southwestern corner of our province today. It's a very scary thing to be told you must leave your home in the middle of the night. And I know that those affected by the evacuations and those who have loved ones fighting on the front lines today are worried. I'm going to do the best that I can to get you the most up-to-date information possible and keep you informed. The Government of Alberta will be providing regular updates to media on the situation, at least daily and as often as necessary. For the most up-to-date information on the fire, as well as evacuation orders and alerts, follow Alberta Emergency Alerts. As I've said before, I have with me Bernie Schmidt, who is a forestry manager with Alberta Agriculture and who will be providing more specifics on the situation and what our crews are expecting to deal with today. I'm reassured that we have been aware of and responding to this encroaching fire for several days, and the resources of the local municipalities, the province, and the federal government's National Park Services are engaged and integrated. Overnight, the fire grew by 50% to roughly 20,000 hectares. It left the park boundaries last night and is pushing east and slightly north. This is what precipitated the most recent evacuation orders by the affected municipalities. Right now, approximately 500 people are under mandatory evacuation order from their homes in the Waterton town site, parts of Cardston County, parts of the MD of Pitcher Creek, and parts of the Blood Reserve. Evacuation centers are located at the Vertical Church in Pincher Creek, as well as the Cardston Civic Center and Standoff Multi-Purpose Building. Provincial officials from the POC are coordinating with those centers, as well as the Red Cross, to ensure that adequate resources are in place for evacuees. I'm advised that the MD of Pitcher Creek and the County of Cardston will also be placing the remainder of their residents on evacuation alert. Cardston County and the MD of Pincher Creek have also declared states of local emergency. We're advised that efforts to fight the eastern border of the fire are likely to be more successful today, during the day, with the use of tanker and helicopter resources. That work is underway. The wind dynamics will determine whether the eastern border can be held later today. Additional evacuation alerts may be necessary as the situation develops. The Provincial Emergency Centre is working closely with the municipalities on this issue. Meanwhile, in the town of Waterton, roughly 45 structural firefighters from neighboring municipalities, including the City of Calgary, are working to protect the structures within the perimeter of the town. Unfortunately, structures outside the perimeter have been lost, including the visitor centre and several other buildings. Crews are working hard to protect houses and other structures within Waterton, and so far, our latest information is that they have been successful. Firefighters working within Waterton will be relieved today by a second team coming in and will continue their work along with support from the 17 trucks they have on site. Within the park itself, there are roughly 135 firefighters, 9 Alberta air tankers, and 14 helicopters. Alberta Forestry has an additional 125 firefighters and 23 helicopters on standby, waiting for direction from the Incident Command Team. The Keno Fire, as it is known, is being tackled by a unified command comprised of Parks Canada, our own Agriculture and Forestry Wildfire Section, emergency officials, Emergency Management Alberta, and obviously with the assistance of emergency officials from neighboring municipalities who are embedded into the integrated management team. We know that Waterton is not only a home to the nearly 200 Albertans who live there, but that it is a very special place for hundreds of thousands of others and the home of a National Historic Site. We know that Albertans care, we know that Albertans are capable, and we know from experience that in situations like this, Albertans don't hesitate to step up and offer help. I'd like to thank the communities affected by the fire for their cooperation in smooth evacuations. From the bottom of my heart, I'd like to thank the first responders working around the clock to fight this blaze. We owe an incredible debt of gratitude to you. I look forward to being able to provide you with additional information as it becomes available. In the meantime, I'd like to pass the mic over to Bernie Schmidt, who can give you additional information on the history and the state of the fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Premier and Ministers. At approximately 5 p.m. on September 11th, last night, the fire changed direction to a northeast progression, traveling a distance of about 6 kilometers over a 2-hour period into the Cameron Lake drainage and into the Akamina Parkway. At that time, helicopters were forced to cease bucketing operations due to extremely high winds, which results in safety concerns. At about 9:30, the fire reached Nellie's Corners. Structural protection specialists were working within the town site of Waterton to protect the structures. At the same time, a grass fire was reported by the MD of Pincher Creek in Cardston County near the park gates. This is likely due to a spot fire that came from the main fire, the embers that come off the main fire. At about 10 o'clock, containment efforts of the grass fire were unsuccessful. The fire was on both sides of Highway 6 and progression through the grasslands outside of Waterton Lakes National Park. The wildfire remained active until about 3:30 a.m. this morning, when winds began to settle. As of 4:30, the wildfire remained very active on the hills around the town site. Early this morning, we began air tanker operations east of Waterton Lake National Park within the grasslands, along with helicopter bucketing operations as well. And from all accounts, we're being told that that's very successful at this time. Just a little update on the current situation within Alberta. There's currently 16 wildfires in the forest protection area. 6 are being held, 8 are under control, and 2 have been turned over to responsible parties. The weather forecast for today, there is a fire weather advisory that has been posted by our weather section. The fire weather advisory has been effective daily since September 7th, is the situation that we're faced with. Strong gusty winds continue to be in the forecast for the region, which has proved to be a challenge to firefighting efforts, and we'll be monitoring that through the day. This morning, the winds were relatively light out of the northeast, but they are expected to change to the west and become very brisk. And temperatures are forecasted to be around 26 degrees today. Relative humidities could be in the 15 to 20% range. And this will challenge firefighters through the day. Thank you.
We'll now take questions, starting with those in the room. Do you guys have questions? No? And one question on the phone? Operator, please put through the first caller.
Our first question comes from Kelly Kreiderman of the Globe and Mail. Your line is open.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my questions. One thing I'm wondering, and maybe this question is for Mr. Schmidt, is how the nature of the fire changes once it leaves the forest area and hits grasslands or prairie like it seems to be right now.
The dynamics of the fire as it enters into grasslands can change. The grass in that area is dry and cured, so it can become very aggressive, and depending on the wind speed and the direction, can move that fire in a very aggressive manner.
Is it better or worse than it burning through a forest?
Well, that's relative to the situation, but it is as dangerous to people and structures and infrastructure that's in the area. So it cannot be taken lightly.
Is it a good thing if the wind starts going west instead of east, in terms of it could blow the fire back into areas that are already burnt?
Well, on the western flanks and perimeter of the fire, it will blow the fire back into itself. But obviously, on the eastern flank, as the west winds come up, we run the risk of additional grass fire and moving the fire closer, more to the east and into some larger prairie areas.
Operator, please put through the next caller. Operator, please put through the next caller.
Our next question comes from Nia Williams of Reuters. Your line is open.
Hi there. Other than Shell Canada, is there any other oil and gas infrastructure that's threatened by the fire?
Hi, Nia. It's Shannon Phillips here with Environment and Parks. There is, of course, the Shell Waterton facility that we have been working with them and the Alberta Energy Regulator for some days now to ensure the safety of that facility and all of Shell Waterton Gas Complex's neighbours. There are no other major facilities. However, any other activity in the region is being, of course, is subject to the forestry permits. And that's forestry companies as well as any other mineral or other subsurface activity in the area.
So does that mean they are, sort of their operations are being curtailed?
Yes, there are no other large operations in the area save the Waterton gas complex. But any other activity has been by permit for some time. Access has been severely restricted, and we have had excellent cooperation from all of our partners in forestry and in the energy sector with respect to the closures of the forest protection area.
Okay, thanks.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Our next question comes from Jeff Smith of Lethbridge News Now. Your line is open.
Hi. Is there some difficulty moving firefighters in and out, given that the fire may be threatening roads in and out of the area? How difficult is that?
Well, we always take precaution in moving firefighters around. The safety of firefighters is our top priority. And it does make things difficult. The team itself, the incident management team, will be assessing how to move firefighters into an area. It will not stop us moving firefighters in. We just have to find the safest and best way to get them in.
Okay, thank you.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Our next question comes from Barb Glenn of Western Producer. Your line is open.
Hi, Ministers. Could you tell me whether any farms and ranches in the perimeter in the fire area have been burnt, damaged, and how it's going for the people who live and work on the perimeter?
Yes, we do know that there has been some damage, but we don't know the extent of it at this time. It's very difficult to get over the area due to the smoke and the wind conditions, but there will be extensive follow-up on that.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Our next question comes from James Wood of the Calgary Herald. Your line is open.
Hi. Could you clarify, I guess, how many planes are actually involved here? And when you're talking about having hoping for a sort of greater success today in fighting the eastern edge of the fire, I guess sort of what does that look like? What are you actually hoping you will see happen today?
Okay, yeah. So the aircraft that are on the fire today, we have 4 CL-215Ts and 4 802 air tractor aircraft and 1 Electra. So 9 in total aircraft, 14 helicopters that are on the fire, and we also have another 23 helicopters on standby waiting to be called in. And say again the rest of your question.
Well, I guess you're hoping, you said you're hoping for better success today in terms of this. I guess how do you measure that? What are you actually hoping that you will see happen today? Actually moving it back or holding it where it is, or how do you view that?
Yeah, so the aircraft that are working the fire right now, they're working the very edge of the fire, the perimeter of the fire, so they're knocking down the flames that are advancing. And what this does is it gives our ground crews, municipal firefighters, the opportunity to get in a safe manner and actually extinguish that perimeter and hopefully curtail any further advancement to the east.
Thank you.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Our next question comes from Shannon Robinson of Shooting the Breeze. Your line is open.
Good afternoon. As someone with the fire in my backyard right now, I was at my desk all night last night sharing the evacuation notices, and I have some concerns with the Alberta Emergency Alert System. We've been promoting it as the best way to get that information. However, what I discovered last night is that typically my alarm didn't go off until about 30 minutes after I had already received and posted information from the MD of Pincher Creek. Is that a problem that's been identified before? And if not, how can we put confidence in a system that really seems to be lagging behind?
So we've certainly heard reports from people that there was a bit of a delay and or that the website needed more support, and so we've had conversations with officials in the provincial operations centre in the POC to ensure that we increase the performance of the emergency alert system. There are also websites, or just generally on the GOA website, there are also updates that are posted there. But absolutely, we are looking at that, and then we are as well looking at ways in which we can increase the level of communication to the communities through the integrated command team.
Because if I had been sleeping and counting on the phone app to wake me up to evacuate, that's a pretty big lag to have, and it's a very strong concern that I just want to make sure is passed on from the people here.
Thank you, Shannon. It's Shannon Phillips here. First of all, thank you for, many people have commented in Southern Alberta that you've been the best source of social media information, so thank you for your work on that and your contributions. You're certainly part of, your public service is not going unrecognized. But we have heard those reports, and as Premier indicated, we are ensuring that we are following up on them to make sure that this system works in the best way possible for all concerned. And I anticipate we will have some changes in place by the end of the day. Thank you, Shannon.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Our next question comes from Lauren Krugel of the Canadian Press. Your line is open.
Good afternoon. We know that the fire caused some evacuations in the Blood Reserve, and I'm just wondering what role that First Nations community has in the decision-making process, and whether their plans to have a representative from there in the integrated command.
They do, right? Do they? Okay. Well, certainly we are coordinating with them as their community becomes increasingly impacted, and we've asked our provincial operations centre to ensure that all the affected municipalities and/or communities are integrated into the team. So now, obviously, that the Blood Tribe has been impacted by the evacuations. If they don't have someone on that team now, they will very quickly.
And just another question. We know that there's some rain in the forecast. I'm just wondering whether that's expected to come in time to really help out with the fire, and whether the forecasted volumes are expected to really be sufficient.
Could you say your question again? Sorry.
Oh, I'm just wondering, we know that there's some rain in the forecast, and a couple of days from now or tomorrow, and I'm just wondering, whether that'll come soon enough to really be a help, and whether the rain will really be enough to put out a fire of this size.
Certainly we are watching the weather forecast on a daily, hourly basis, and there is a prediction of some precip that's coming in. What those amounts are going to be is yet to be determined, I think. But it is going to help us in our firefighting efforts. Whenever we do get precip, that is a good firefighting day, and we will make progress on that. The forecast, I think today we have to be very cautious of what the winds are going to do later today, and we are watching that fairly closely.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Our next question comes from Kelly Kreiderman of the Globe and Mail. Your line is open.
Hi there. One other follow-up question, and you might have just answered it. James asked about what you're optimistic about. I'm asking, what is your biggest area of concern as of right now? Is it the winds coming up later today, and what area would that affect specifically?
Yeah, so based on the forecast and the possibility of westerly winds, the east side of the fire is our concern, and we'll be watching to see what happens with the winds today. We're also watching the cold front that is moving down and how quickly that will move down. Once we're hoping that once we get that through the area, we're going to start seeing some precipitation on the fire.
Operator, did you have a follow-up, Kelly? Operator, please put through the next caller.
Our next question comes from Sherry Noreen of Windspeaker. Your line is open.
Thank you. I was wondering, when did the evacuation notices go out to the parts of the MD of Pincher Creek, Carson County, and the Blood Reserve?
I'm sorry, are you talking about the evacuation notices that have already gone out?
Yes, evacuation notices that have already gone out.
I don't have those notes in front of me. I believe they went out at something like 10-ish last night, 11-ish, and then midnight-ish. I think there was 3 separate ones that went out yesterday. What I'm advised, very late in the day, and of course what I'm advised is that what happened was when the wind shifted, the fire, once the fire made its way into the grassy areas, it started moving very, very quickly, and so they had to respond very, very quickly. So that's my understanding of when they were issued, but we'll be sure to circle back around with you because I don't actually have those specific times at my fingertips right now.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes the program. Thanks, everyone.